Everybody, welcome to Drive Thru Review number 390. Today we're going to talk about Dark Moon, and this is now being released from Stronghold Games. It's a hidden trader, hidden team game. Plays 3 to 7 players, about an hour or less once you've played it probably once and get the hang of it. Now it is sort of a remake, I guess you could say, or the game is finally made. Originally it was on Board Game Geek as Battlestar Galactica Express or BSG Express, and the designer's name is Evan Derrick, and he decided to go ahead and try to make sort of a quick filler version of Battlestar Galactica, and succeeded. I actually did a review of Battlestar Galactica Express a couple years ago and really quite enjoy it. And if you're watching this in real time and you do frequent my channel, you will see yesterday it was on my top 100 games of all time list, and I was kind of wondering, would Dark Moon sort of replace it? Well, I'm going to make you wait to the end of the review before I tell you that, but so you already know I'm going to kind of like the game at least a little bit anyway. All right, so let's jump into how Dark Moon works, what it's about. Well, you're basically on a far moon out in space, and one person or some people have become infected, and they are working to just kind of destroy the station, and then the non-infected folks are trying to keep it from being destroyed and work through some different events and things to get to a final event, succeed on that, and then win the game from there. So it's kind of like a liar's dice mixed with Battlestar Galactica, if I can be real glib about it. But let's go ahead and jump into how the mechanics work, and then I'll tell you what I think. Okay, so here you can see the main board in Dark Moon, and this represents the station that the players are at, and they're trying to keep from getting run down. There's different little panels and zones and things that tokens and stuff will be added to. There's a sort of a console display of these little monitors, and this is where the event cards will come out. You can see I've actually dealt one there, and then you can see the final event there on the right. Now, what each player is going to be dealt is one of these different character cards, and these are different people that are on the base, and there's a little bit of backstory there, and then each of them has a special ability there on the bottom that gives them some kind of powers when they're doing different tasks and rolling dice on the board. Now if you flip these over, you can see a fatigue side which hinders your ability. So you can see you may not submit more than 1 dice during any malfunction tasks. So I'll talk more about that in a minute. But you're going to be dealt these, and then of course you're going to be dealt these status cards. And based on the number of players, you're going to put a different amount of cards in this deck, and you're either going to be infected or not infected. There's the 2 cards there, and the rules say, just kind of like Battlestar Galactica, where everybody kind of pretends to at least read the card, because the infected player needs to know that they can reveal themselves, and then some of these you can see trigger a different ability that they can do. So they need to kind of know that and not be checking the card, you know, periodically and saying, what does my infected power do? Like, oh, why are you checking the card? So you're going to be dealt these out based on the number of players, and then you're going to get a screen that matches, you know, which character you are. And these screens are not how they should look when you get the game. Everything you see here is production. My copy is sort of like a very early release copy, and I actually had to kind of cut these screens out myself, so they look horrible. I mean, they're serviceable. It's not a big deal. So they show you here that you get 4 dice to start the game, and you can also see here a little sort of player aid. So what does fatigue do? It gives you sort of the breakdown of what's on the different dice. These are the different actions you can do. What happens if you get quarantined or brigged, or however you want to say it. And so that's all the stuff that you can do in the game. Now, if you do reveal as infected, you can go ahead and switch out for an infected screen, and then this shows you all the different actions that are available to you as a revealed infected player. Now, as I said, each player gets 2 dice in the game, and so you're going to get 2 strong dice and 2 weak dice. So you can see 2 black dice and 2 red dice, and these are the dice you're going to roll to fix certain parts of the station as they take damage, and also to succeed on different tasks. And succeeding on the tasks is going to allow you to, as you can see the cubes there, mark cubes on the events, and you're going to deal more events as you succeed at them, and then you need to deal with the final event there. If the infected players destroy any one of these stations or fatigue all the crew members, they'll win, and if the other players make it all the way through, they win. Now, I should say one player will get the Commander Handbook, and this tells you some of the responsibilities that you get for the Commander. And the Commander also gets this blue die, which has some extra strong sides, like a +5 and things that they can submit to any task. So if we zoom in here at this main sort of center console of the station, And this is the first thing that you need to be concerned about if you're infected or if you're uninfected. So if one of these stations gets filled up with tokens, then again, the infected win. So the first thing you're going to do on your turn is take an action. And one of the actions you could do is to repair one of these stations. So you can see here is the shield station. It starts off with 2 markers, and then we have 2 markers here on the outpost, and then we also have the life support here. And this is actually how you determine who the commander is. You'll flip over these tokens until it reveals somebody that's in the game, one of the characters that's in the game. And if we ever fill this up, then the players will also lose. And then also anybody that's in there, so if somebody was using John Reed, then they would actually flip their character card over to the fatigue side. So let's say for your turn's action, you go to want to repair one of these, you want to remove one of these tokens. Well, the first thing to notice here, if we zoom into the outpost, is these will have sort of global effects hindering what the players can do. So since we started the game with the command, you get 1 less die when passing, and you cannot go lone wolf, which I'll talk about more in a minute. And so here this says shield control, so you can't actually repair the shield over here until you got and fixed this little token here on the outpost. So the first thing you're going to do every turn is you're going to grab all the dice back that you might have spent on previous turns. I'll talk more about that in a minute. But then if you wanted to repair one of these, you'll pick and choose 3 dice to roll. So you'll roll these in private behind your shield. And you can see that wasn't a very good roll, because what we need to actually repair any of these 3 stations here is actually just 1 positive die. And we rolled 3 negative dice. And so you roll those behind your screen, but you have to submit. Anytime you roll a die, you have to submit at least 1 die. And so in this case, I would have rolled this and say, oh, I only rolled negative. And then everybody around the table would say, bull, you're an infected. And there's a high chance to roll a negative dice here. So the game is, in terms of the die roll probabilities, is slightly tilted in favor of the infected. So let's say I did roll a positive die, then I would submit that positive die there, and then I could fix one of the things. Or if I was trying to fix the shield, I could remove one of these tokens like so, and then that could be my action for the turn. The other thing that you can try to do is lone wolf it. So if we take a look at one of the events here, we can see here is sort of a nasty effect that can be happening. This is like, so it's during, while this event is in play. You can see there's spots for 3 cubes. You can normally get cubes by completing tasks, but you can also, for your turn or for your action, do the lone wolf action. Again, you roll 3 dice. In this case, you have to submit 2 positive dice, and then you have to then you get to put a cube on that, and so you're that much closer to completing that event. And then once you complete the events, you can draw more. Now, the other thing that you can do is actually issue an order, and so it doesn't cost you any dice to do this, but you can say, hey, I'll give you an order, Billy, across the table, if you do these 2 actions. So if I issue an order, that player gets to do 2 actions of their choice. Again, you have to be careful, because you could be issuing an order if you're uninfected to an infected player, and they could turn on you, because nobody knows who's on their team. You sort of have to deduce and figure out, okay, I'm infected, so I need to find, if there's more than one infected, that, you know, somebody is on my team or they're not or whatever. So you have to be very careful about issuing that order. And the next thing you can do is you actually call a vote. And so you can say, we're going to vote on Billy, or you could even say, I'm going to vote on myself. And then each player is going to grab 1 of 2 die. You're either going to grab a red or a black die. You don't need these in your possession. You just kind of grab some dice, and then everybody's going to put 1 in their hand and then reveal it. Now, you can reveal a hand that's empty, sort of abstaining from the vote, if you will. If you vote with a black die, you're basically voting that they're a good guy. They are uninfected. If you vote the red, that's negative. You're voting that they're infected, and then they become quarantined, and they're going to get this little quarantine marker here, which shows that the number of dice that is available to them is reduced by 2. So they go ahead and put that on their screen like so. Now, you can also get other things through different events and things, negative and positive dice, so you can actually get more dice that way. Now, while you're quarantined, you're also very limited to what you can do on your turn. You can't do any of the repair actions. You can't do the lone wolf action. You can only issue orders basically from your cell, and then you can also try to call a vote. You know, you still have some sort of verbal influence on the outcome, very thematically, but you can't actually, of course, get out of quarantine, get out of your cell to go actually do anything. Now, the last thing you can do for your action is reveal as an infected. So you flip this over, and then you can do whatever this is. Usually it's something bad, and then you can roll a die and try to do whatever you did bad again a second time. So you can see, draw 1 shield token and place it on the board. And I'll talk more about what the shield does here in a second. Now, if you're in quarantine and you reveal, then you don't get to actually trigger the effect there. And the next thing you do after you do one of those actions, so you either repair something, kind of lone wolf it and try to do one of the events, call a vote for quarantine, or reveal as an infected, you're going to draw from one of these task decks here. Now you can see they have decks for the different player counts, so 3, 5, and 7, and then 4 and 6 there. And then you're going to draw, normally, 2 cards. You can get other abilities that make you draw more. And you look at these 2 cards, and then you choose one to discard face down, so people don't know what you got rid of. Maybe you got rid of the easy one. And then you flip this one up here, and it's coming out of the printer, like so. And then this is going to tell you something here. So this is a malfunction card. This is one of 2 types of cards. And you can see this has question marks. So you are going to have something up here on the board actually malfunction. Now you can also get cards that are specific, like this life support malfunction there. You can see there's the life support. And what this card is actually telling you is giving you a difficulty of 8 and a consequence of 1, and sometimes it will say suspicious activity. So let's take a look at this real quick. So you've got a difficulty of 8. So you'll take this little blue cube here, set that as your target number, and then it's telling you that if you fail, then you're going to add 1 support counter there, and then trigger maybe 1 fatigue. Now sometimes it'll say consequence of 2 and you'll add 2 and so forth. Now going around the table, each player has these out and in tokens, and everybody's going to do this in turn order, and they're going to say whether they're out or they're in. Now if they're out, they can retrieve 2 dice. Now anytime you submit dice, whether tasks or the actions you can do on your turn, you're going to put them in here and spend them, and then they're going to get moved over here to the available. So at the beginning of your turn, you'll draw dice up to your total. And if you are out on a task, I mean, you're not going to help. You may not even have any dice to submit anyway. So you're going to say, I'm out, and you take 2 dice of your choice out of the available there. Now, if you're in, you're locked in. You have to submit some dice when it comes around to you. And then what you're going to do is you're going to roll the dice. You got to submit at least 1. Remember, every time you roll dice, you got to submit. And then you're going to take and add whatever you submitted here. So let's say -2. I'm actually going to reduce that amount. And we're going to go around, and everybody's got to submit, even if you have beat it. Let's say, me and Billy and Frankie, we do it. We get some good rolls. We get a lot of positives here. Let's see, that's +8. So we're at +11. So we're at 11. And then Joey and Dolly over there, they're still in. So they have to submit. So they could even submit negative dice and pretend like oh, that's too bad, and then you come back under, and then you're not going to succeed. Now, if you succeed at this, not only do you prevent the consequence, but you get to add here another cube to the event. And again, once you fill up this up, then you can go to the next event and the next event, and then you have this final event up here, which has been causing you problems through the whole game. Now, also, if we take a look here at suspicious activity, if you see that on the card, then you have to move up this marker 1 space. And then when it hits this, then the captain is forced to call a vote. So you have to sort of get somebody out there, which is very interesting. I love this mechanic of the game. This is awesome. I haven't seen anything quite like this. I'll talk more about that in the review, but this is a really cool thing. So you're going to have to sort of force a vote. Now there's another type of task that you can get. Let's take a look here. Here we go. And so this is a complication task here. And so we can see these are very interesting actually. It says choose another player to give you one of their dice permanently. If they agree, the task succeeds. If they refuse, the task fails and you must draw a shield token. Okay, so that's very interesting. A lot of them are like this gist, do something that's probably not great for you. It's going to help me. Then, if we do it though, we succeed at the task. So you should be okay with that, right? You should be okay with helping everybody, right? And so they've got to, give you a die. Now they're down a die, or else something bad's going to happen. So I like these. These come up every now and again, and it's really cool little dynamic there. Now, speaking of the shield, whenever we add a new marker to the shield, we're going to roll a die. We'll just take any die and roll it. And then we're going to look and see if it matches any of these here. And so right now, the next revealed one is a positive. So if we roll a die and it's positive, thankfully it's not there, then we have to choose to damage one of these 2 other repair areas there. Now, what can you do as an infected player? Let's talk about that real quick. So one other thing about the shield tokens is if there's 0 or 1 shield tokens and you're the infected player, as your turn, you can go ahead and add a second shield token or a first shield token on that player. The other thing you can do is actually draw 3 task cards and either put them back on the deck in any order or discard them if you wish. The other thing you can do as an infected is take the sabotage marker and put it on any of these repair stations so that when somebody is going to repair that, not only do they have to submit the die to actually repair it, they've got to discard 2 dice, or as many dice as they have, up to 2, and then that will actually remove the sabotage token. And as your turn, you can also, as the infected, move it to one of the other outposts. Next, you can do what's called demoralize, and if you remember, these black dice are a little bit better here than the red dice. So everybody to your left that is uninfected has to replace any of their black dice with red dice, as long as there is enough available in the available resources, because this is going to be based on the number of players and how many dice are in play and everything. The other thing you can do is test the commander. And remember, the commander has this big beefy blue die, which is pretty cool. It's got some more positives on it. You can test it, and they're going to roll all their dice, and they have to submit one that's positive, or else you get to pick a token of your choice here and add it to one of these 3 areas. That's pretty much the game. Okay, so that is Dark Moon. Now, what do I think of it? Well, I'm pretty sure I like it better than BSG Express. I've only played this twice now. I've played BSG Express, I don't tell you how many times. So I'm of 2 minds of how to approach this, because BSG Express does have its fans. Now, a lot of people have not played the game because it was a print and play, of course. And so I think a lot of those people are going to be interested to know how it's different, but a lot of people don't have any reference. So I'm in sort of 2 minds, because as I said, BSG Express is in my top 100. It's in my top 30. So I really like it. I really like BSG Express. It was one of my favorites. I think the favorite, excuse me, trader team game. Immediately kicked out Battlestar Galactica for me instantly, because it had that whole thing where you have the switch, you jump so many times and then you kind of deal out the roll cards again. So there may be no Cylons, and then there's Cylons, or vice versa. There may be another Cylon or something. So I love that mechanic. It's really cool. And it played so quick. It was less than an hour to play, and it only plays up to 5. This plays up to 7, which is awesome. I haven't played it with 6 or 7 yet, but I really want to, because I think that's great. It's going to accommodate that player count, and it's going to, satisfy that in this kind of game with a big group. We're only really, you could do that with the Resistance and One Night Ultimate Werewolf before that. These larger games, I don't remember how many Battlestar goes to. I think it goes to 6, if I remember right. But I don't know that I ever want to play it with 6, because it would just be kind of a long game. Now, the cool thing about this, if you're trying to get a bearing on where it sits, it's kind of like in between a Battlestar and a Dead of Winter and that kind of style of game, and sort of like a Resistance and a One Night Ultimate Werewolf. Whereas the first 2, or the latter 2, are very quick, like a 10-15 minute game. Although I've had a game of Resistance go like 45 minutes. Anyway, but so you can have, shorter games of that, and then you've got your sort of hour and a half Dead of Winter up to your 3 hour or so Battlestar Galactica, depending on how the game goes. So it sits right in that middle. You can definitely play this in less than an hour, even with 5, for sure. And it plays fine with 3. That's what I like too about this, is it can play this. It works great with 3. It's fantastic in these kind of games. Like, one night you can't really. You need 4 or 5. I mean, you really need 5. These other games, Dead of Winter, you can't really play that with 3. This works with 3. And the reason is because you come out of the gate having to be just accusations flying, and it's not like you have to wait for it to develop. I mean, yes, in these other games you can start throwing accusations, but it's like a joke. He's like, oh, whatever, Cylon, like on the first turn before he's done anything. Okay, fine. You're not really throwing out an accusation. In this game, you're really throwing it out, and it's like, oh crap, I wrote all negative. Now people are going to think it's like possible. You can come out and just be like screwing people right away in this. That's fantastic. I love that. What is better about this than Battlestar Galactica Express? Well, first of all, the way that the tasks came out. So in this game, you have the task cards, is much better than it was in BSG Express. In BSG Express, you have these sort of task dice, which you would roll, and then you'd pick one and choose out of the 2 possible tasks. So you had some of the similar things where you'd bring out tokens on the board and you'd have to fix them. But this is a little bit more interesting because you have a better scope of tasks. So the malfunction task where I showed you how to hit like a target number, that was basically all it was in Battlestar Galactica Express. This one has the critical task, whatever the heck they're called, where they have sort of like a conflict between the players, which is what I really like. Hey, give me a dice so we can pass this. I'm not giving you the dice, you're the traitor. No, you're the traitor, That's really cool. And I also like how they've replaced the second deal of the infected cards. with the forced vote, because that's something that, especially at BSG Express, you wouldn't see a lot of calls to vote. Now, they didn't happen, but it was very rare. And it's kind of a rare thing to see in other games as well, even with, well, less so with Battlestar, but like Dead of Winter, for example, you don't see a lot of votes to exile the betrayer, but I mean, you see them, but this one forces it. So you're going to have it every game. And that just by calling the vote, that's just a point of discussion to start the accusations and the name calling and all that stuff. So I love how that does that. It's just like, well, you know, you can kind of play it off. There's all kind of mind games you can just play with that. And it's a really cool, like, I'm almost like, why didn't I think of that? Because it's such a great little mechanic. The other thing that's neat is the event system, which doesn't exist, is you have these different events that are going to be causing you problems, and they add a lot of theme to the game. And that's one thing where I like BSG Express is pretty thematic for what it was. This adds on that extra layer of theme, and it's a very simple thing. The commander draws the 2 events, adds once, even the commander could be infected. Well, you can't be infected revealed in the commander, but he could be, you know, secretly infected. And then he's going to put out, oh, okay, well, that's a little harder. That's a little bit more nasty, you know. And so you've got that kind of sort of something bad is happening. You're not just like repairing and replacing and adding and removing tokens. You've got this sort of story-driven kind of narrative kind of thing happening there. Yeah, so it's really cool. It's, like I said, all the things I said at the beginning about being quick and everything are right, but it also feels like more of a full game. So if you played, well, I'm done with the Resistance, so let's just not talk about the Resistance anymore. My game is One Night under Ultimate Werewolf in terms of these go. But when you play one game one night, it like doesn't work. You've got to play multiples to build up sort of a meta game within your session. You've got to like pick a set of roles and then play it like 3, 4, 5 times, right? And then you kind of build up sort of the lies and, you know, sort of the tricks, because the situations are so configurable there. So this one though, you could play it just once, or you could play it like 3 times. And you can kind of go either way, because it plays so quick. This is something you definitely want to pick up and play again. That's, you know, let's play it again, let's play it again. But you can play it and it can be a sort of a satisfactory game, because it plays right on that hour mark. It doesn't overstay its welcome. It doesn't feel like it's too short. And to me, that's really a nice, cool achievement with it. So yeah, I think that's about it. I know there's a lot of other things I could probably say about it, but it's really cool. I really recommend people get this style of game and get this game, because you're not going to go wrong with it. It's not going to be one of those kind of nightmare scenarios where the game's going to kind of come out wonky. And that can happen literally with all of these other style of games where, you know, Dead of Winter, you can have a huge, you know, nasty traitor turn that's going to throw it. So everybody's going to, you know, a lot of people, they like to react to their first play and go, I'm never playing that again. Obviously, I think you should give that game several shots, and then you get to know the game, and then it's like amazing. So, but you can have that. And in Battlestar, you can have that where the game is just a slog, and somebody screws up some little detail, which screws you up, you know, a couple of turns later. So it's got that. And One Night is crazy because you can have these crazy, you know, setups that is like, that was weird, that was like wonky, why did we pick these roles, that was stupid, or just, you know, so you can have variability there. This one's a little bit more consistent, I think, and that's where this one kind of stays put and sits there for me. So yes, okay, I'm done recording the video. Now I want to play the game again. All right, thanks, bye. Oh, I figured I should say this at the end. I'm not going to ask which one are you keeping. I'm keeping both, but Dark Moon is better. Okay, thanks.